Wow. Just congrats. This year has been unbelievable. I was there when you broke the internet last year when I was just getting here, and just the impact you've made with this first year is unbelievable. I was just looking at some of the stats of over 24,000 members, over 22,000 people in the Facebook group with over 100,000 plus comments and posts, 6,000 plus events in 150 countries. So if that's not making an impact, I'm not really sure what that is from here. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah. And it's kind of like the passion and mission turned into a movement. And the world was ready for this. And, and the cool part is, Tony's got 42 years in this space. I have 23 years. We've been in it so long, and we just took what we know and gave people the blueprint. And it's been pure fire. So it's awesome to be here with you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's really cool. And I have a really strong belief about this in the knowledge business, having young kids and what college costs these days. So just convincing my wife on that this is the route to go instead of college, right? But,
and it's not even the cost of college. It's the cost is one thing. It's the results of what people are getting is even worse, right? How old are your kids?
I have a 14-year-old girl who's in ninth grade, Ashley, and a sixth grade boy, Zach. Who's
so I'm almost there. I have I have a 13-year-old girl and an 11-year-old boy. So I'm just a year behind you on both, man. And,
that's great.
And I'll just tell you, just to really, as we kick this off, I want to tell you how much I believe in this. I believe whether you went to school 30 years ago or you're deciding to go, it just fundamentally, school just didn't grow at the same pace our society did. Our technology, our evolution is growing exponentially, right? You remember 20 years ago, we didn't have this thing called an iPhone with everything on it. Look what this thing did over the last 20 years. But school hasn't changed since the 40s. So the life is growing like this and the education system's going like this. And the world is realizing, instead of going back to school or learning from my own trial and error, I'm going to learn from someone who's already done it. Dude, we were just talking, you're in direct response for 19 years. Do you know how many people are starting off on day one in direct response, and they would do anything in the world to get a weekend with you? They would cut the check. What are they going to do? Go to school for 7 years? In 7 years, they still couldn't learn 1 ounce of what you figured out in the real world. Right. So the world is realizing, and I'm so glad you realized it. We were talking a little bit before the camera went on. The world, you're realizing it's like, okay, there's a lot of people that need what I have. And now you're seeing that firsthand. But I got to tell you real quick, man, what I said to my kids. I said to my daughter, so let's just use her as an example. She's really creative. She's an artist. She loves doing art. She's got a great eye. Like, she can come into my office and go, oh, move that stuff around. It doesn't look good. So I said, okay, I want to talk to you about college because I don't want them to go. If she wants to go for a year as a novelty, fine, she can do it. But I said, here's the path, babe. Let's say you want to be an interior designer. She goes, oh, that might be cool. I said, there's 2 ways you could go about it. The old way, the traditional way, is go to school, get 4 years of business and maybe some art classes and design classes. When you're done, go intern someplace and then get a job and maybe work for a company for 5 or 6 years, get the experience, and then maybe you start something. I said, or we find the top 5 interior designers in America, and you and I sit down and we craft a really magical letter to each one of them. And we tell them that you are going to be the best employee they've ever had in their life, except you're free. You'll hustle harder. You'll learn more. You're quick on your feet. You're solution oriented. I said, you're going to go work for them for a year for free and deliver more value to them than they do to you. But they're going to dump their 10, 20, 30 years of experience into you in 1 year. You know what happens? That self-education, that mentorship, you will come home and you could go in the interior design business just like that, because you're going to start off where she left off. And I watched my daughter go, legit. She's like, oh, I really understand what you do now, Dad. I'm like, exactly. Hey, thank God. Thank God. Right.
So
anyway, I just want to tell you that because you got kids almost the same age as me.
Yeah, no doubt. You hit the nail right in the head. It's about specialty. It's about understanding the end goal. It's for me, when I went to college, I played baseball in college. I loved baseball. So I sat and swung for hours. For me to go to the classes, I needed to understand the end result for me to be excited about it. I wish I knew now what I knew then, because then I'd be going to these marketing classes and eating up everything they're saying because I know how to apply it. But I didn't understand it at that time. So it makes so much sense. But so now you've created this unbelievable course, the Knowledge Business Blueprint. You've created some software that you've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on. You've partnered with your experience and Tony's experience and Russell's experience with the combination of revenue you've generated with those three minds is in the billions. It's just now you're bringing this to the world and making this impact. That's just unbelievable that we just have to get the word out. We just have to get people to understand. So, let's just dive in, because I've been talking about it and a lot of people are asking me questions, and they keep on asking me, what is the Knowledge Business Blueprint? What is MindMint? What is this all about? And I figured, why don't we get the man on to explain it directly from the source? So
yes. Oh, really cool, man. So at the end of the day, I'll just go really quick, is the world is realizing what you realized in the last couple of years of your life, Eric, is that you have so much knowledge from just experience, and there's people that need it. And unlike years prior, people are willing to pay for it, because what are the options? Go back to an antiquated school, go work for somebody for 10 years, or learn through trial and error, or spend a weekend with you. I say this, and this before I talk about the course, I want everybody listening to think this, because we all have unconscious competence. Like, we're all good at something, and until somebody shows us how to unlock it, we don't realize it. And there's somebody else starting on day one that needs that information. So what I tell everybody is when they say, I'm not sure I want to do this, but what am I good at? And I'll say, if you could go back, and I'll ask you, Eric, if you could go back and spend 2 days with your 20-year-old self, 2 full days, what would that be worth to your life?
Oh, I mean, game changer.
Right. It's like priceless, right? But that's really what the self-education world is. This is what Tony's been doing for 40 plus years, me for 20 plus years. We just take knowledge, capabilities, things we learn through experience or learn from others, and we share it with people to go faster. Simple as that. Again, their options out there are bleak compared to that model. So with that self-education industry growing faster than ever before in history, it's at $355 million a day right now. Forbes says it's heading towards $1 billion a day. Tony and I got together and said, why don't we create the gold standard, the gold standard blueprint to help the world be a part of this? And if you're just for everybody asking, why would we do that? Because self-education saved our lives. I wasn't smart enough to go to school. I wasn't a great athlete. So I was like, my guidance counselor was like, ooh, go work at a factory, right? But when I found self-education, I started learning from Tony Robbins and all these other great people. My life changed forever. Same with Tony. He learned from Jim Rohn. If he didn't have Jim Rohn, he was sleeping in a car when he learned from Jim Rohn, right? So self-education transformed our lives. And now we want to give it back to the world. So we got together about 1.5 years ago and said, let's create the greatest course that ever existed. We got 60 years plus in this space. And then we also know, so now let's get into the course.